Hello.
Hi. Can you see slash hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot
Okay.
see
Let
you.
me try the video.
Okay.
Can you see me now?
Yes, yes. Okay. Let me
Okay,
just.
sorry, I don't actually have a not to do like a weird bedroom setup. I just don't have a desk where I'm
Oh,
at the
it's
moment.
it's no problem at all. I
Yeah, I
completely
again I
understand.
just got here a day and a half ago, and yeah, staying with a friend, a housemate from days of old who has not had to share a space for a while with anyone, so therefore well, yeah, that's my way of saying I don't have a desk, so all apologies for the setup.
Oh, that's quite all right. Here, let me get this set up because for some reason it's very weird.
It's showing that my connection isn't great. I don't know. I'm seeing it's like red slash yellow. I don't know. I'm not. I'm kind of technologically useless though. So
Oh no, that's quite all right. You're coming through just fine. I've
oh,
got you
great,
pulled up
great.
on the stream. So I guess let's start out there.
Okay.
So you're not currently in Ukraine. You are.
Unfortunately, not. It's been about a week and a half. I just got to Prague a day ago or so, and before that, I was in Warsaw for about a week.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I've been living in Ukraine for the past 5.5 years, uh, and I lived in Russia for a little while before that as well. So I'm uh, obviously American, but it's still it. I haven't even visited the States in a couple of years since the right before COVID started to take off. So I'm kind of a sort of a wandering soul or something, but primarily in a Ukrainian sphere.
Mhm. Mhm. So you didn't leave. You didn't leave Ukraine because the war was ramping up, correct?
But I mean, no, I left as I left after it had become after the war had become a thing. I did not want to leave. War does crazy things to people. If I had the ability to stay and fight in some capacity, I would have. But at the same time, I don't necessarily have that skill set. And as is, I didn't want to be underfoot for those who did.
Hmm.
And I figured I'd cut my parents some slack because I mean, they're good liberal Democrats and watched far too much MSNBC and therefore had been on the edge of shitting bricks for weeks, if not months. And
Yeah.
I still don't want to give the NatSec world too much credit for being the boy who cried wolf. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's in terms of throwing around blame and credit and all of that about what happened and when and how. I don't like getting too deep into the weeds about any of that. It's rather than what is and what isn't, not who gets credit for what.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah. I understand that, and I think that's a good way to look at it. Because I mean, a lot of us we were going based off of what we were hearing, literally from Zelensky, that this wasn't going to happen, that there was
mhm.
kind of some bloviating about it, and there was that the mistranslation that came from him.
Oh goodness. So again, that
Yeah.
was just so silly in that um I'm drawing a blank about what the word was in English, let alone Russian or Ukrainian, but I mean, even if it didn't precisely translate into Ukrainian, that's not his native language anyway. So it's more direct within into Russian. And yeah, a lot of that was just kind of, I can't even explain what it was. It felt a lot like nonsense. And the extent
Yeah.
to which Western audiences got any fixation on that was, um, I don't know, silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I took a pretty hard stance that, like, sure, a bunch of us were wrong, but the people who are kind of like doing this sort of victory lap on Twitter and other
Hmm.
spaces, saying, oh, we were right, we were right. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
No,
Um,
no, not an issue. Hope it's not COVID.
oh no, no, it's not. I made
I
sure to
was
test
gonna
myself.
say that is something that is been completely out, that suddenly vanished from certainly out here, well, within the Ukrainian sphere, and uh, it was certainly not in no way really under control, the illness, and yet it has definitely taken a back burner to other things, and I worry that it will last longer as a result. And within Russia too, even though they have their own facilities, which are now probably going to be hurt badly. Granted, the Sputnik has been around for a while and it's been pretty effective
Hmm.
overall. So I don't know about how any of this is going to affect the pandemic, which still is going on, but it
Oh
won't be
yeah.
good. So
Yeah, I'm also the one that has been paying close attention to things like the BA2 subvariant that's coming out. Like it's here in the U.S. now,
oh, is it?
and yeah, it seems to be the last reports that I read is it was in L.A. and New York and New Jersey, and nobody's really paying attention to it. Everybody's following the guidelines of you don't need to wear masks. Nobody's wearing masks anymore, and yeah, they seem to just turn their focus all to talking about Ukraine and some weird nationalism and around Ukraine and the U.S. backing them up and no flies, blah, 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 all that we're going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do have that same worry. My focus oftentimes is on healthcare. I'm a
Okay.
nursing student and I've worked in healthcare for a long time. My wife's a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and I have uh, I have a lot of concerns about this kind of turn away from COVID and what that's going to create in the media sphere. It's sort of like what happened uh, after the 2020 BLM mass protests,
Mm-hmm.
where this stuff is still going on. There's still people protesting, but the news has turned away, so people just stop talking about it. And I'm more the one to be like, hey, this stuff is still going on. Let's still talk about it to the extent that I can on my small little platform. So I feel you there. Just so you know where I'm coming from on that stuff. But that's still a huge problem in Ukraine.
I mean, I don't even know, honestly. I feel like people stopped talking about it necessarily. I, I mean, towards the end, do people wear masks on public transportation? Often, not always. I mean, when again, I'd been living in Kiev entirely, and with my housemates are from the northwest of the country, and almost 2 weeks ago, on the Thursday after the first actual bombing, certainly of Kharkiv and other major urban areas, became a reality and not just kind of a will they or won't they. We agreed to pack up and go west. And I could say going in the northwest of the country, a very small area, masks are, I did not see so much of. And I don't know how bad, again, it's a pretty rural area. I don't know how
Mm,
badly they were affected by COVID. I mean, again, the being relatively rural and not having a lot of population density, certainly in a European context, kind of sheltered people for a long time. But they also, I don't know how widely dispersed vaccines were last year, so I
mm,
couldn't tell you statistics. Just that it's not over. It's not over,
yeah.
but people are other much more immediate mortality concerns, it seems.
Prior to the war, how was Ukraine doing in controlling the pandemic?
So I would even say that is one area that Zelensky could deserve some critique about. Well, I mean, just in terms of how much small businesses were struggling because they didn't really have funding to close when they needed to, and there's definitely a lot of consolidation by large companies, um, and again, I guess that's an issue everywhere about the tug of war of the economy and public health, and I would say it was not necessarily handled as well as it could have been. Well, I guess that's putting it nicely. I mean, by compared to American standards,
That's
it
what I was going to
probably was
ask.
better overall, yeah, but I mean, well, I guess also there's a whole lot of questions of the economy of how much of it is in their own control to print out money to give to people to or give to businesses to close for times. I mean, granted, now they're doing that in light of the war of people that have had to up and leave their livelihoods, giving the equivalent of about $300 or a little less as a single payment. Um, it's something I read a couple days ago that
Hmm. Yeah,
just for keeping individuals,
that's something
giving them
that's
some kind of balance. Hmm.
maybe with the aid that they're receiving, if they're getting like more, well, if they were getting more humanitarian aid as opposed to military aid, that's
Yeah,
something
I
that
mean, I
they
don't.
could provide.
It's hard to say one versus the other about. I think there's a lot more spillover, or a lot of they're not as mutually as exclusive as it might seem initially.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mhm,
Well, that's definitely important to know because especially going forward, how serious they're taking it can kind
mhm.
of branch out to how serious they can continue to take it with the war going on because that can definitely cause a lot of issues with getting information out. Um, Speaking of which, um, how have things been as far as like keeping internet active, keeping networking, communications active? How's that been going?
That has largely been okay. I mean, Russians have in some targeted like main lines in some regions that, and particularly like that have at times this past week caused a lot of like internet to slow down and back up, and then some regions would be temporarily without connection. But it's again, a lot of these stoppages have been temporary,
Mm-hmm.
so and regional. So that has not been the issue that I feared it might become. Knock on wood. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
again, it's still an ongoing game of whack-a-mole where Russian forces are targeting infrastructure, among other things.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Civilian, municipal, military, and that includes communication channels. But um, a lot of things, again, it's been on again, off again. But
Hmm.
communication is pretty open. It's still pretty much functional.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. It's definitely getting information out of there is extremely important, and we've
Yeah,
already
of
seen a
course.
lot of issues with getting uh, uh, accurate information out,
Yeah,
especially
I
to the
mean,
U.S.
yeah, I mean, I'm not there on the ground, and even when I was, it's what do you see and what do you understand about like Europe? Don't believe your lying eyes, and also, yeah, different sides certainly have their own spin. I mean, obviously, I would not trust what's coming out of Russian media at all. Is Ukrainian media completely without agenda? No, no. There's
Hmm.
again with reporting on numbers in particular is something that even the stuff that I review and because as is I'm still helping out with chronicling a media feed like 24/7 for an organization I worked with in Kiev, and yeah, like the 100% veracity of everything or and that it's completely unbiased. No, that's not possible. But
Of course, yeah.
I would give the Ukrainian coverage, I would be pretty relatively confident of it and have absolutely no confidence in Russian coverage.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not explicitly, again, I don't think like all things Russian are the devil. I lived there for a while. There's I really worried about people there and friends who have been detained for protesting, and anyone else just and many many more just feeling anguish and helpless in this situation that has nothing to do with them, nothing to do with their personal or material interests. Yeah, it's devastating for people to watch, basically.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. That's been one concern I think a lot of people need to
Mhm,
take focus on. There's been a lot of
mhm.
lionizing of Zelensky. I feel like lionizing these world leaders is a mistake. If you're going to, I feel like the best side you can be on is with the people who are anti-war in within Russia and within Ukraine, the
Mhm.
protesters in both areas, because we should just be
Yeah.
pushing for no war effort as opposed to
Yeah,
being
I
on a
mean, at
side.
the same time, the no war in Ukraine at this rate, on the Ukrainian side, it's sort of like, other than making plans now for capitulation, people don't want to be invaded. And like the
Of
refrain,
course.
apart from some people with really, I don't know how they're, apart from people with personal vendettas, the line has always been to telling soldiers, like, go home. This isn't your place. You have a home. Go. You have a country. Go back to it. Make your life there. Leave us to ours. So yeah, it's not about destroying Russia and Russians and so forth. So it's not at equal sides at this rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but people that because in this case, Russia is the aggressor, and people within that, people there who recognize it, and even given the very like propaganda saturated media front they have, certainly with legacy media. Yeah, that the people that going that are really sticking their neck out. So, but yeah, the idea is a lot of it. In many cases, Ukrainians just want to be in some way, yeah, well, not invaded and left to their own devices, to be to their own self determination.
Hmm. Yeah, as they should be.
Hmm.
Um, so I wanted to have you on to help dispel some of the myths that have been going around. There's been a lot of
Try first.
difficulty on. Yeah, I know you're only one person. You can do what you can.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
there's been a lot of complaints on the left about some of the organizations that a number of us have been donating to and
Hmm.
supporting. A lot of infiltration from more Nazi leaning uh, uh, people. Now, I had heard, I believe it. I'm trying to remember where
Hmm.
exactly I heard this, but that the big concern as far as like Nazi sympathizers is within the armed forces or the National Guard specifically, and not so much with the Ukrainian people. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally that has been the case, and that's kind of been the issue of, yes, everybody's favorite buzzword of the Azov Battalion, and before that was C-14, getting absorbed into the National Guard, and letting people within that carry out their own agenda. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's cause for concern, but at this moment, I'm reluctant to mince I don't know, to kind of mince words and like pay too much close attention to factionalization at this moment. I don't know. Maybe again, it's just from me, because that was where I'm at and where I was, and watching my life and that of, well, I mean, I'm lucky. Millions of others,
Mhm.
people near and dear to me that are on, again, at kind of hiding in basements, trying to time, how to like minimize personal loss of life from long range missile strikes, and uh yeah, and elements of the military that are disgusting in their own right. I'm not sure the real um, help in fixating on those right now. I mean, again, if you want to give, I can't really necessarily even say about aid. Again, there are some programs like universally, things like Doctors Without Borders and all of, and that are strictly non-military in any way. But again, I'm just the the timing of that, and again, and the issue of the word Nazi. I've just grown very annoyed of it. Basically, Putin's denazification has just come to mean a way of saying getting rid of anything that is distinctly Ukrainian and not kind of diet Russian. And
Hmm.
yet, that's also a real joke, given that Kharkiv, beautiful city, that really the place that I kind of felt most in my own equilibrium as in terms of being something between Russian and Ukrainian has and largely Russian speaking, very like the Soviet legacy is most strongly, you know, intact there, and the Russian forces have been bombing there apart from I mean anywhere on the border, but that city very again historically Soviet, uh, linguistically and ethnically Russian, and is being torn to pieces. And yet that is again that is the opposite for a denazification that kind of shows that to be hypocrisy. And also this phrase has just mean getting rid of things that are not distinctly pro-Russian.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm part Jewish. I've taken issue with people, with anyone being light on Nazis, but at the same time describing what that actually means in terms of a national identity as well.
yeah. I mean, because Russia's pretty nationalistic too. Putin is very,
Oh,
very
God,
much a
yeah. I mean,
nationalist. You
yeah,
know.
and it's kind of wild in some ways. That the extent. I mean, I'm totally on board with the people making the point that he has quite openly said about his nostalgia for the Russian Empire, and when certain center right friends of mine were talking about, oh, kicking Bolshevik ass. Like, no, it's actually more like, if you want to use the analogy, they're talking about the White Army, which again, and there are people that were caught up in that weren't all some sort of demonic or something either. So,
Mhm. So,
yeah,
so
again, I
if
feel like nomenclature has come to mean so many things and nothing all at once.
mhm. So it essentially it seems like, and it is weird to say
Hmm.
that if there is a concern about these nationalists on the Ukrainian side within the National Guard, that it
Hmm.
kind of takes a back seat to what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even like using exactly those terms, but again, it is just at this moment where people doing things out of desperation. Like again, there was again, I it wasn't something I saw directly, but the news breaking out about potential, well, Ukrainian nationalists, which maybe you could include, say, neo-Nazis, dipping ammunitions in pig fat before they going off to face Chechen mercenaries. And of course, that's disgusting. But at the same time, I could see people that think they are, fighting to not be annihilated, and also fighting to not be humiliated, choosing to humiliate somebody else with it. Again, it's disgusting, it's abhorrent, but it's
I mean, I think
again
U.S.
war has
forces
crazy
did that
things
too
to.
in the Middle East too, right?
Oh yeah, again, it's a kind of, I mean, in this case, also, honestly, the mercenaries are the outsiders. Again, I do not condone any of that, but I can see why someone would be inclined to meet humiliation with humiliation. Not that, again, it's horrible on all accounts, but yeah, I mean, yeah, and I suppose they probably, yeah, these far right Ukrainian nationalists probably did pick that up from um, Americans in the Middle East, doing that kind of, again, just absolutely disgusting, um, like over the top behavior.
Hmm,
But again,
definitely.
but at the same time, they were also it's also a defense versus offense. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's
One of
and
those things.
before the last couple weeks, any of it, I did not think anything would come to this, and I didn't think my own opinions. I can't imagine. I couldn't have imagined myself even having the opinions I do now. So
Yeah,
it's quite surreal.
where you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, so yes, there's Nazis. Yes, they keep taking pictures of these people that have
Well,
nationalistic symbols,
honestly,
but
that Azov battalion picture, the one that is
there's been a lot
used
of
to
them.
get. I mean, so, okay, there's like the insignias, but like there's a certain picture that is from 2014 and is used ad nauseum on
Mhm.
social media, and people don't even seem to notice that it's the exact same picture. So
Well, I mean, that's the internet for you. This stuff can get
yeah,
passed
yeah,
around.
basically is that people they have one talking point and they beat it to death with a shoe.
Yeah,
So
because I mean, I definitely have always taken the point that, like, siding with Nazis is always bad, but and God, it feels so weird to say
I mean,
this.
yeah, I
It's
don't
just
like it. I don't like any of it. But again, it's
at the time
there are
being, they're not acting as Nazi sympathizers. They're acting as people protecting their sovereign nation. Is that a good way of
yeah,
putting it?
basically. Yeah, basically. And again, it's deeply unsettling and uncomfortable, but
Oh yeah.
also at the same time, yeah, the Russian military is doing all that and more. Obviously, we speak of the Wagner group, which has been basically plundering in before this. I mean, been mentioning, Central African Republic, um, and as a mercenary company there.
Mhm.
So again, there's no excusing the immediate behavior and ideologies of any of them, but it from moment to moment.
It's just
And
not a
also I
concern.
can say, like, yeah, the far right, even in within military circles, is their influence is overall not necessarily, yeah, is still pretty minor, I would argue.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. Yeah, because there's definitely been a lot of people jumping down everybody's throats about that, and
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that I hate anyone, again, being like Russiagate, this, that, and the other, but there's definitely they've fanned the flames. Like
mhm.
Russian state media has definitely weighed in on that and contributed
you,
certain talking points that will not go away, even after they're debunked again and again.
you kind of gotta wonder, like, I, I I was always one to not delegitimize the investigation, the Russiagate whole thing, and the Mueller report and everything, because
Sure.
essentially what it looked like with Russia was they were building a giant misinformation uh, campaign online,
Yeah.
and this is the perfect place for it to work. Um,
Hmm.
to spread a lot of disinfo to get people on their side in this war, to say, like, hey, look at all the Nazis, look at all the Nazis, we're doing
Yeah.
denazification, and no reporting on their huge problem with Nazi sympathizing and nationalism. um, so I always tell leftists when they come on my chat and try to talk down to that whole thing, like, oh, blame Russia, blame Russia. Like, no, 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 don't blame Russia for everything. Obviously, don't blame Russia for 2016. We can't measure how much of an effect they
Yeah, I
actually
mean, what did they
had.
find? They found like Podesta's pizza recipe or something.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I mean, that was that part of that the Russia stuff in terms of,
mhm.
yeah, in terms of 2016.
But like they still had this massive effort that was creating misinformation, and
Sure. Sure.
it almost worked out to where the fact that we were questioning all this Russian propaganda turned some people against Western media entirely to buy into this propaganda and think that that's
Yeah.
being on the left,
Yeah.
thinking that Russia
Sure.
is communist still.
Oh God, yeah, seeing those so-called polls out, that's very, very, very embarrassing. And certain what American elected officials saying. I mean, it's funny. I haven't been home in a couple of years, and I left most recently in 2014. So, and there's things that I don't know of how much is just me and social media versus what is actually how certain representation in the states of how things are. Again, sometimes I don't know how much is like if there's a dissociation of sorts of
Yeah.
of what has actually gone down there. So versus how I follow it on social media.
Yeah, and I live in Michigan, and it's winter time right now, so getting
Mm.
out and about is been difficult. So I'm not entirely sure like what most people kind of feel like. I've heard of a few things, but from what I gather, there is just the thing seems to be you know, you put the Ukrainian flag in your Twitter bio, and you say, you know, Zelensky is uh you know, is our Vladdy daddy,
Superhero.
you know. And
Yeah.
so this is one thing I want to talk about, because the lionization of Zelensky, from what I've
Sure.
gathered, Zelensky is like kind of he's solid president, and yes, he's doing what he needs to do,
Hmm.
and that's good as a president in the situation. But what exactly? How? And how do I ask this question?
Okay. Sure.
How he ran on anti-corruption, uh,
Yeah.
and he largely had a lot of failings there. There was the report coming
Yeah.
out of the it's not the Panama Papers, is
The
it?
Pentagon. No, not Pentagon. No, the Pandora's box. Pandora
Yeah,
Papers.
yes.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
linked him to
yeah.
some corruption.
Sure. I think as other people have, I'm sure, mentioned, is Ukraine is largely run by a series of competing um, political clans with that are funded by oligarchy money. Some of them have distinguishing ideology. A lot of it's based on geography of what who got their start where and the interests of that. I mean, are the differences? There are some distinct differences, like social and but like economic. It is kind of a we'll get him of what is it, musical chairs, and yeah, that his his clan has worked a lot on targeting the corruption of other clans and kind of being quiet on his own, as to some extent Poroshenko did before that. I mean, I would say just on a media projection level, Zelensky was like he is doing better, is doing things that yeah that has totally won the like the media aspect of the war. That I mean, again, he is someone um who again he's been a media figure for like what about 20 something years since he was like a college student. He started yeah as in the Soviet and post-Soviet countries had a a a competition like KVN, I think, comedy something, but where they have uh, kind of teams from different universities, doing like sketch comedy and improv, and it's heavily televised. It's really really big deal. My ex-husband from Kyrgyzstan would watch it all night, and when I had finals, so basically it's yeah, that was how he got his start, like in comedy in the late '90s. When, during and again, this thing had been in the Soviet concept from like the '60s or something. Yeah, so a he's been a theater guy pretty much his whole life. He's comfortable with cameras. He's comfortable with people as an audience, and how to, and being the like being this self-effacing um comedy anti-hero, or kind, well, but as, and which really solidified with his show, that Sluga Народа, which is now the name of his party. And I think in 2019, a lot of people really wanted to believe that the actual, you know, actor, media company manager, and the high school history teacher that he played were truly the same. And I mean, there are definitely some overlaps, but again, he's not not so innocent and naive, that and the other. Again, is he worse than other leaders they've had? No, I would say he's, like, in terms of corruption, mild, I guess a bit better than Poroshenko, but again, it's still a, I don't know. I can't. I'm mixing up my metaphors. Merry-go-round or musical.
Revolving
It is.
door.
Yeah. No. It's also, again, that each of them, they have their differences, but they also have their similarities. And
Hmm.
or another major head, if you heard of Yulia Tymoshenko, she used to have these really great iconic braids in her hair. She was. I honestly, I would say. Um, is also another figure that is part of that old school, again, set of political clans.
So he's
In
kind of
2019,
neoliberal in a way, and kind of like
yeah,
Obama.
and sort of, I would say, like, Poroshenko is soft nationalist, and Timoshenko even less so. But yeah, all of them are about. There's a lot of gesturing and not a whole lot of change. I mean, before that, with Yanukovych was really explicitly pro-Russian, and and a total idiot. So again, it's pretty funny is watching, like, Western tankies try to argue against Euromaidan, and say about the guy they had before that he was legitimate, and that he was, like, when actual Russian supporters and separatists will not boast of him, just because he was just so incompetent and crooked that yeah, I mean, he
Sort of like a
was
Trump type figure in a way.
yeah, like, or I don't know, who are, like, Trump acolytes, somebody like lower on the totem pole. I don't know, like Chris Christie.
DeSantis, Chris Christie, yeah,
Well, okay, he's not that fat, but, like, sorry, but yeah, like, maybe a Chris Christie type.
yeah,
But
okay. So
but
somebody
yeah, and
who's kind of just like
well, I don't know, or
almost
maybe he's
playing a
more
character, but
incompetent.
also it's still kind of him.
Yeah, he's, again, just deeply incompetent. And I mean, I've heard some friends from, like, Crimean friends and other people that might have been generally more Russia sympathetic, that maybe a better leader, that who was still committed to maintaining uh better ties with Russia, could have navigated the situation that led up to Maidan in a way that would not end in revolution and fleeing the country. I don't. Again, I don't know how much of, I don't like the strong man, the adept leader to save everybody. I don't know how much of that is true. But again,
Hmm.
I would say, he was distinctly bad at it. So, and I mean, and I guess what I'm really annoyed about, everyone who talks about Maidan as a coup, that, or as an as a Western puppet coup, which is just, yeah,
Hmm.
simply not the case. Not everybody agreed with it, but there was tons of ground support, or an organic support from it in Ukraine. So,
Okay. I actually haven't heard anything about Maidan. What exactly is the story there?
well, yeah, again, short and I guess a bit, again, in 2013 or 2014, that winter of, I mean, the quick and short and dirty thing is, people had voted in interest of wanting, kind of, again, a pivot towards Europe, the West, and so forth. And then um, and even making certain deals on it, and then at the last minute, Yanukovych kind of reneged on that to get something at the moment better that would have been leaning back into Russia, and there was a lot of anger about that because I mean, also the same guy was um, well, in 2004 had a won in a fraudulent election basically as a Russian puppet, and then international support came out for a recount, which turned into the Orange Revolution, again part of the color revolutions, and some people have like very bitter feelings about that because um, the guy that did win that second round, who Russians actually poisoned, Viktor Yushchenko,
I've heard that.
ended
Yeah.
up, yeah, becoming. Again, he had some great rhetoric at first. Actually, I have mutual friends with his wife, but just name
Oh,
dropping.
that's
But
interesting.
yeah, he became kind of like an empty chair, an empty that, and that who was, voted out, and I guess by Yanukovych because Yushchenko was just that useless, I guess. Again, that much of an empty suit. But again, the idea is enough to get enough support to have represent the interest of people looking more towards the EU. And also like one aspect I think of people that gets forgotten is like the economic thing about that, or Maidan skeptics were people that we're worrying about being under even more control by the IMF and the EU. People like the common refrain is like, we can't be the next Greece, and going to have some economic autonomy, and worrying. Again, these are people that the Maidan skeptics would say, and I mean these days it's kind of become a non if like it's not really the thing, and also like but the social the cultural aspect of those resisting, I would say, has been majorly overblown,
Mhm.
and also like again there was not universal, but it was definitely organic popular support for people who felt betrayed by Yanukovych's kind of last minute overnight switcheroo sort of, and particularly as he sent forces to fire on protesters that kind of took away any kind of that the prior to that largely peaceful movement had been. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of similar to the reporting that's coming out of like Donetsk and I forget the other region that a lot of
Luhansk,
people are.
or again in Russian
Yeah.
it's Lugansk, in Ukrainian it's Luhansk.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
they have kind of different. Yeah, and I mean an area that.
Because like there's a lot of
Yeah,
overblown views of this Russian support in these areas. It's from everything I've
yeah,
seen, it's very very minor. It's sort of like taking the side of a like a Republican in like I don't know, Detroit is the only one that could come to mind.
yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
like,
yeah.
hey,
There's a
there's
lot of people they
Republicans
want.
here who want to separate
Sure.
into like Canada or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
oh, so Canada should invade and take over
Yeah.
Detroit and all of Michigan.
Yeah.
Like,
It's some of that. I mean, yeah. That a lot of people there probably aren't necessarily committed to well to Ukrainian language necessarily, or making or having bad ties with Russia, but at the same time they don't want to. They're not in any rush to be Russia, and I mean, if
mm,
that's and people out there, if that's what they want, they've already gone. They've already got their passport and moved to Rostov or even Moscow or something.
do those
So yeah, that
sympathizers have the same view of Putin that Ukraine is not a
what's that?
legitimate country?
Wait, who says that?
Do the separatists who want
I mean,
to become Russia,
again,
do
the
they?
actual, I don't, never heard, I, again, I'm only talking anecdotally,
Mm,
and I don't really know people who are really hardcore separatists. I just know people who live down there, and again, a lot of people just want to be left to their own devices, particularly older folks that just kind of maintain it's maybe maintain their post-Soviet thing. Yeah, and you're right with mentioned Detroit because it is largely it used to be like a big industrial manufacturing base in the Soviet Union, and then it kind of has become a post-industrialist place that people were struggling, and also kind of did get people looked down on in other parts of Ukraine. I guess in the Soviet era, they had hosted a lot of prisons, and so people elsewhere would call them like, oh, like they breed criminals down there, which is
Oh,
obviously unfair and untrue. But yeah, there are people who are there is definitely some real resentment of being looked down on by people in other parts of of Ukraine that Russian opportunists could come down and kind of inflame that resentment. I mean, again, it could be how Trump has worked that in deindustrialized regions where people are looked down on in the U.S. And he did that extremely successfully. Of yeah, people that feel that kind of resentment, but
yeah. Kind of feel disenfranchised from the whole thing.
yeah,
So
and
it's not even
but
necessarily that they want to become Russian. They just kind of want to be left alone.
they're just again they I mean, maybe they're not necessarily excited. I mean, they probably don't want to have awful relations with Russia. A lot of them have relatives just across the border and just want to be open to it, but they're not desperate to like embrace a Russian identity or Rossiyskaya, because like in Russian language, there's, two different words. One like relating the the country as we know it as like Россия, and that is Rossiyski is the adjective describing the red things relating to the Russian Federation, and then there's Ruski, which is just for the all things like language, culture, age-old stuff. So to be that they're and I'm saying it's important to remember that they're not synonymous terms. Something certainly Russian state media and talking points are trying to conflate as one as the other, and certain in Ukraine as well, some that are really bent on Ukrainian language and like really make establishing their own distinct their own distinct reality to the point where calling Russian language the language of the oppressor, and therefore we should all get away from. I don't really think that's really helpful. I mean, it's also because my Ukrainian skills aren't great and I'm lazy, but that's not. But I don't think it's far more than me. But that
Yeah, it
to
just kind
have
of sounds like a different form of nationalism to just say,
yeah,
this.
yeah, there is some of that, but again, and there is some of it, and it's unhelpful, but it's also
Hmm.
majorly overblown, I would say, in terms of people making talking about discrimination against Russian speakers in Ukraine, and I can say that's by and large not a thing. There are places in the West where it is not in wide use. Certainly anywhere that was not in the Russian Empire prior to the Soviet era, that where Ukrainian itself had all this time to develop and have the influence from Polish and other stuff. Yeah, again, like I said, my housemates are originally from the northwest of the country, and they it's all like entirely Ukrainian speaking because again they had historically were allowed to, but again this country it still can be multilingual, multi-ethnic, multinational. It's the largest. I mean, Europe is tiny compared to most other parts of the world, but it's still the largest country entirely within Europe, and I see it as having room for that some diversity that way.
Hmm.
And in practice, yeah, kind of streamlining everything is totally unrealistic, and again just unhelpful for a modern pluralist society.
Yeah. See, this is the big thing that like I definitely wanted to have somebody on about because
Hmm.
I knew from the beginning that as soon as the invasion happened, there was a lot of people who were very much trying to simplify it as much as possible, and I'm like this. The more and more I looked into it offline, because I refused after they invaded. All I would say was like, okay, so I was wrong about invading. um, I would refuse to jump to anyone's side except for like the people who were anti-war in
Hmm.
the residing countries. Um,
Sure.
and I would keep telling people, be careful because this appears to be a lot more complicated than we can make it. It's not as simple as these people wanted to be Russian. These people are a majority in these areas and they wanted to be Russian. It's not nearly that simple. And there was a lot of ignorance towards the expansion of NATO, the push to. There were some talks about them joining the EU. Um, and different things like that just overcomplicate these things, and people would jump right to either being all in on Russia, all in on Ukraine, and it's like I don't think we can just do that with the limited knowledge that we have, the fog of war, the misinformation campaigns out there. And I'm really glad to hear that this is incredibly complicated. It kind of reminds me
Yeah,
of
sure.
Syria in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I could say that.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that the U.S. doesn't get involved any more than it has. I'd like them to just be doing more, um, less giving of weapons and more support for the people on the ground. Um,
Yeah,
so
I don't know. Again, yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, I just wanted to turn back just a little bit. So I want to
Mhm.
talk about how we got to this point. Um, from you were on the ground, you were paying attention to the news there. Was it the fact? From what I had heard, Russia was doing bombing campaigns already in the Donetsk regions. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's the Donbass has been. I mean, I would say civilian deaths were primarily mostly in the early years, but yeah, they have been, yeah, basically harassing and terrorizing local people, and then Ukraine would, yeah, I mean, they would also send their forces to the front. Again, it was disputed territory in a lot of ways.
mhm,
And people who could leave did, and those who stayed, particularly in rural villages, were those who again did not have the means or networking avail to get out.
mhm.
But yeah, yeah, that's people say like, Ukraine has not known peace since 2014, and that's true, particularly in that region and the area surrounding it
And
has been.
this is a massive expansion of or escalation of that.
Oh yeah, again, this even pretty much until it happened, everyone who wasn't, well, nearly everyone expected this thing to at most uh get, again, to not expand past Donbass. It would, again, the except then the declarations of independence being so full, so not so quick, nonchalant, and immediately followed by so-called peacekeepers kind of overnight realized like, oh wow, that's not their end goal. This is happening really fast. And again, the use of the term peacekeepers and so forth was a real nasty slap in the face. In that, I mean, just on a personal level, last year I went to Armenia for a few weeks in the summer and found myself spending a lot of time around along arguably disputed territories on the Armenian and Azerbaijan border, and randomly like seeing tanks and trucks and looking like for a flag in the distance and saying like, wait, that's not the Armenian flag, that's not the Azerbaijan flag. Like looking up close, like, oh wait, that's Russian flags, like, blonde kids and so forth, and like basically saying that that is one place where Russia has sort of served as an actual peacekeeping force of keep it, on. Again, it's kind of an ongoing on again off again war zone of between Armenia and Azerbaijan, particularly. I mean, Nagorno-Karabakh, the area that is in high dispute, and then other border areas which are still in, fighting. And that is one area where Russia has kind of served as an intermediary. I don't know. People on both sides probably have different opinions on that, but from what I could see, they do work to not to keep down like
Sort of the
active
lesser of two
hot
evils
fighting
sort of
there. So
thing.
I'm saying is like they do peacekeeping in some places. I don't know. Probably not. Probably has its issues, but it happens there. And then calling the troops that they sent into Donbass as peacekeepers was an absolute slap in the face when it was clearly the start of an invasion.
Yeah, yeah. Like the comparison that I can draw to the U.S. is sort of like how we have peacekeeping troops in South Korea, and that is actually what they do to keep North Korea at bay. And then in countries like El Salvador or even Iraq and otherwise, we call those peacekeepers, and very much not. They are very much an
Mhm.
escalation. Um, when we invaded Iraq, for example, like we called them peacekeepers, and I don't think so. Not to mention our actions in Syria and Libya, but yeah, I would draw that comparison to say that yeah, the escalation in Donbass region is more akin to what we did in Libya, where we just tried to
Yeah.
take over a country.
Mhm.
Is that a fair comparison?
I mean, overall, yeah, I don't know. I mean, with Libya,
It's tough to make these comparisons. I know. I'm
yeah.
just trying
I
to
mean,
like.
that's probably the biggest strike against NATO in modern history. That's kind of and that. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a world unto itself, I guess, in terms of weaponry. But yeah, yeah. Again, things are again complicated. Strategic partnerships and interests, and who is doing what effectively where and for what goals. So,
So here's speaking of NATO.
mhm.
Here's something I keep going back to. Should should NATO have tried to expand into Ukraine, and should Ukraine have tried to join NATO, considering that these were the grounds by which Putin said that that would be the line to draw. Uh,
It's just so hard to say. I mean, I feel like that has become such a massive talking point, and so many pseudo intellectuals in the Western left are kind of talk about everything. It's like, so is this NATO that you speak of in the room with you now? Like, it just becomes like all the lens through they see which they see things. I mean, if
mhm,
like a lot of people say, maybe if the whole program had disbanded after the Soviet Union collapsed because the conditions were different. I mean, you can make that argument. Um, Central European countries, like in the Warsaw Pact, that were there in the Warsaw Pact, not necessarily by choice, and kind of had a resentment of Russia. That you could make that argument. Yeah, Ukraine is certainly its own a different kettle of fish, given its proximity to Russia and as part of a full-throated Soviet state. Now, I mean, the Baltics were, but they've always kind of had one foot out the door, and they were quite resentful even with during that time. I don't know.
mhm.
I feel like Lithuania is sort of like a little guard. It's like a guard chihuahua, if I can say that. Just in terms of being saying things that other people won't even and expect and having I don't know. Again, no offense to any Lithuanians out there. You guys are cool, but
I, I doubt I
yeah,
have any Lithuanians, but
no,
it's good to cover that
okay,
base.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying is that I don't know. They
Just in
they
case
certainly
anyone
could.
comes
But yeah.
across it, yeah, it's
Okay.
good to
Yeah.
cover that.
Um. But
But
yeah. And I mean, I guess another thought is an alternative. People speaking of like an EU army or a official Europe army that doesn't necessarily include North America. I mean, I don't know how that would look, but that it seems as an alternative, something that could keep the people who insist, oh, that it's just being strung around by the U.S. I mean, maybe, yeah. Again,
sure, but
inevitably. I mean, again, would it just be a German French thing? I don't know if that would be some kind of compromise though, as a
yeah,
security
like because
condition.
it does kind of seem like they were choosing their security uh, by attempting this joining of NATO because of what Russia had done. But
Yeah.
I do you just got to feel like this was somewhat of a mistake to do that one. That was the red line, and maybe they wanted to call his bluff and say, hey, we need to make this attempt um, for the betterment of our country, for the betterment of the protection of our country. Um,
Hmm.
but it just, man, it just really becomes very difficult, probably now, to justify that as beneficial to the country, considering what's going on now. Would it have been better for them to maybe search joining the EU? Do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Until very recently, well, I mean, okay, until I don't. I feel like the talk about joining NATO was never really like a tangible thing people plotted out. I mean, even in the organization I've worked with, they spend a lot of time talking about kind of aspiring towards like certain NATO standards, which doesn't even necessarily mean joining, but it's a way of saying like, okay, get our ducks in a row and militarily and
So like kind of be
with
adjacent to them, not like really.
yeah, and basically, and also it's a way of saying like, okay, let's be the best, let's be our absolute best and follow these guidelines, whether that even if the line, the end of the rainbow is not necessarily something that we will be seeing, but it's I don't know how many people would really believe that that was something readily available. I feel like it, honestly, not many, but it has been a sort of a distant goal and something to strive for. And I guess even that, I don't know if having if not if officially saying okay, we're gonna at least put a moratorium on it for a while would take the wind out of the sails. I would say, my opinion might have been to be like, yeah, okay, if you want to put a 20-year moratorium, but still, I don't know, keep training for like considering the strive for standards. I don't know if that balance would be again taking the wind out of their sails. I'm not sure, but yeah, EU membership is something I thought would never be a concept until well last week and so forth, and now it could be a real strong reality in the next couple of years. I mean, I guess that would involve more economic integration, which is again, I mean, a big issue with the sort of pre-Maidan about people saying like not wanting to be even extra beheld to a greater economic institution. I mean, I doubt they'd have absolutely with no sense in taking the euro. I mean, certainly new EU countries have not. I remember when Poland was supposed um to transfer to this from the zloty to the euro, and I think like 2007, and then they hesitated a bit, and then the 2008 crash came, and then they realized that they saved themselves a lot of grief and debt and everything by staying off the euro, and I mean, that's the biggest country in the new one of the new joiners, but I guess yeah, Romania and Bulgaria, which have far less economic activity, but are still big countries, saved themselves some grief as well. That yeah, I'd say like the euro currency probably is a really bad idea at this point. So
Okay. So
I mean, it
joining
seems
the
like
EU,
even
it's
Greece
not even a
talking about not
requirement.
wanting to get off it would be too much. But yeah, so better. I would say that would be kind of a good thing to avoid. But as a for political alliance, I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
Not something I expected in my lifetime, but
Having that
I
trade
mean,
could
some
be
of these things I
mutually
thought of.
beneficial,
Yeah,
especially considering the amount of oil industry that's within Ukraine. That could be pretty,
yeah,
ignoring
yeah. There's
conversations about
certainly that.
climate
I
change.
mean, yeah, certainly. Like, I mean, Ukrainian oil compared to Russian oil is still like drop in the pail, which is kind of I mean, Ukraine certainly, but has some amazing, natural resources that are easy, very covetable, if that's a word. But again, the extent to it, and I'm generally a materialist. I think people and yeah, and institutions operate out of um, economic need and incentive. But and there's definitely a lot of material and resource wealth to be had in Ukraine. And certainly it has some of the best soil in the world.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But also when you think of with climate change being what it is, Russia is gonna have, air. It might well have arable land that we never thought it would in decades to come. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know about the quality of the soil, but they will have a climate that will be more conducive. So I don't know. And they certainly have all their own uh, resources and some of that yeah like extractive resources that dwarf pretty much anywhere and not for everything but for many. So I don't know
Mhm.
some of it how the numbers all crank out, but yeah, I guess I can see that um Europe wanting access to that.
Sorry, my frames just dropped down.
Mhm.
I have issues with that. Something with my OBS software is a little. It's been a little
Oh,
funky, and they're trying to fix it.
mhm.
So we didn't go down too long. But even if we do, I'm recording this straight to my hard drive, so there's nothing to worry about there.
Mhm.
Um, oh, what was I going to ask? Okay, so the thing, one of the other things that I keep going back to is everything I've read is there's not really much of an advantage, like as far as strategic or anything, for Putin to invade Ukraine, and it just seems like what he's doing is just basic imperialism to expand the Russian state, um, to because he doesn't view Ukraine as a real country. Is
Mhm.
that pretty accurate?
I mean, it's crazy, but I think it is. Again, that's kind of why myself and so and Zelensky and so and like why so many people were completely like blown away when this it actually happened is because it is so irrational. And I know people love to like there's a huge cottage industry psychoanalyzing Putin, and I'm really not interested in that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's not
no.
really helpful or healthy for anybody, but
Oh my god, I
I
saw
can
some
just say the
just
actions
really
now are
quick.
not.
I
Yeah.
saw somebody on TikTok
Mhm.
trying to say that trying to examine how he walks and everything and saying that he might have
God.
dementia, and I'm like, could we just not?
I mean, I don't know. Something did something like some. I suppose some switch flipped in him. Like again, his actions seem totally irrational now, and I don't know why. I mean, I have a pet theory, or at least I did. I don't know. I mean, again, is it based on any proof? None at all. It's probably it would seem like the plot of a movie is be if he discovers he has terminal cancer and something sets him off that he decides he wants to take everybody else down with him. Do I really think that? Probably not. But again, at
It'd be
this
a very
rate,
weird thing to do.
I have no idea. What's that?
It'd be a very weird thing to do. Like, as a leader of a
I don't
country to
know.
just do
Again,
that.
yeah, to just like destroy the world with you. I don't know. Could
Like,
be.
it's
At
so,
this rate, there's so much. Yeah, it's so much beyond belief that I don't really know what to think. In many like real concrete terms.
yeah,
And
situation on the
I
ground
mean,
keeps
I'm
changing.
still pretty stunned even now.
I understand that. Yeah. I actually pulled up the story before you came on
Mhm.
um regarding Chernobyl. That's been a
Ah,
concentration
yes.
too. Um,
Hmm.
like as of when was this? 6:35 my time. So
Uh-huh.
that's
Yeah,
about
I've been following stuff.
5 or 6 hours ago.
Hmm.
The Chernobyl site lost power. What?
Yes, let me pull that up. I have where did it go? Sorry, let me check. I have this thing same I have the exact same thing written down.
Mhm.
Sorry,
You don't
I
have to
am
be too
just looking
professional,
at
so don't worry too much.
No,
Like I said,
I have the information right in front of me, just make sure I remember what it is.
yeah.
Okay, where did it go? Okay, as of 12:41 p.m., according to the state enterprise Ukrenergo, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is completely de-energized due to shelling by Russian troops, and then yes, so basically the power is um and before that sorry, I just again it's my sort one of my side jobs to keep an eye on this stuff.
hmm
Where was it in the morning?
what experience do you have with like monitoring that sort of a nuclear?
I
Um,
mean, granted, to be honest, I'm working at checking through local Ukrainian sources just to kind of compiling. Sorry. Okay. Oh, where did it go? Oh no, wait. This was about the Zaporizhia plant. Sorry, I was thinking. Yes, but yeah, I guess it's down for now, and it could be so much. I don't. Oh, sorry. I think I did. I lose you. Where did I? Oh,
no,
here
I'm
I
still
am.
good.
Sorry. Yeah, that it is. There's definitely a lot of concern. I guess the situation in the Zaporizhia plant, I'm not sure I fully understand it until, but I guess it's more stable just as but yeah, it's also another element to be concerned
Concerned
about
about,
and
yeah.
aware of.
hmm Yeah, because I mean, there has been a lot of concern about nuclear wars, a lot of concern about
Mm.
kicking up the dust in that region, how that could increase radiation, and I've
Yeah.
seen it both dispelled and also confirmed back and forth. Um,
Hmm.
and how much shelling is really going on in that region, or are they trying to very much not do that, and sometimes just some errant things happen?
I'm Wait, you mean of Chernobyl or Zaporizhia power plant or
Sure. Yeah.
I mean again it's the idea of the taking over Chernobyl, it seemed at first like it was just sort of a weird symbolic thing, and then, um, but also, and then realizing, oh shit, we actually need to keep the scientists on hand to manage things, and having people, working in I mean, what do they think that this is? Homer Simpson? Like people working in really extremely delicate circumstances under extreme duress and no sleep and being, nudged at a butt of a gun and so forth. So, yeah, there's a lot of concern for that. And I think it does seem like a lot of lack of preparation, certainly, that are unforeseen consequences.
Like they
So,
went in there and they're like, oh wait, oh shit, that's a nuclear fallout site, and where there's still active
kind of it, honestly, probably the people who are there weren't even born yet when that happened. And yeah,
true.
there's just a lot of, uh, you know, a lot of things were not planned out very well. And
Have you ever been there?
I mean, there are moments where it can be amusing, but far more where it's terrifying.
Hmm. Had you ever visited there?
I did actually before the movie, and I was in 2015. I was had been living in
I didn't even
Moscow for a
watch the
few
movie.
years, and yeah, and an old a friend of mine that I had known back in who stayed with me back in Kyrgyzstan, like in 2008, was traveling around like Ukraine and Moldova and Romania, and it's like, hey, you want to come do a tour of Chernobyl? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I just got on the train and went out there, and yeah, we did the tour. So
Just
and yeah, I mean, of course, the visiting the most epic insane part is visiting Pripyat, which is really just as the city, like the place where people lived, the bedroom community that had been frozen in time, close to 30 years at that point, and just so that so much had just been left as is. A lot has been looted in the decades since as well, of course, but there's still also you got a sense of everything dropped at the time. So
hmm, okay. Yeah, because that's definitely been a region that's like very um, because of its history and because of its continuous radioactivity. A lot of people have been paying a lot of attention to it, as they should,
yeah,
with everything that's going
yeah,
on.
and actually, like the way the winds were going at when things, that's why a lot of southeastern Belarus is very sparsely inhabited because I mean, I don't know what really radiation levels are like now, but a lot of people that they were really hit more. Yeah, Belarus was hit worse than Ukraine overall. Well, granted, like the plant and Chernobyl Pripyat area is fairly it's in the far north of Kiev province and pretty close to Belarus, and so a lot of the way the winds were blowing then really got that area the most, and so it's been sparsely inhabited. So even if that's probably not real, people don't maybe notice that as much because Ukraine is more um, as kind of more balance of its population and just a much larger population, but that's something just as a physical thing to consider. Yeah, the effects of nuclear meltdown is for
Hmm.
decades to come.
So it's good you bring up Belarus, because
Yeah,
they've been getting heavily involved, and they seem to be on the
yeah.
more pro-Russian side. What does
Oh,
it?
they're entirely. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
certainly, like their military has basically they have become an extension of Russia. They basically, I don't know if Putin is saying, "Hey, if you're lucky, we'll let you go on, like we'll let you be like an addition, like another Belarus." Like, and I mean, what's really sad is they're basically like gonna seem content to just sacrifice a generation of young men for for cheap gas and their dear leader's vanity. It really seems like that. Yeah, for a country that's not that big, and again, a lot of people, a lot of it is not you can't really fully build there because of the nuclear history. Yeah, so they're. I mean, they were. Yeah, they're in the election a year and a half ago, where both sides claimed they wanted that they got 80+% of the vote. Then a lot of ballots were destroyed, and then the military came out
nothing
for
weird there.
Lukashenko. So it was what's that?
Nothing weird there, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, again, it's the thing is, I mean, for granted, like in the 90s, when particularly Russia and Ukraine and other post-Soviet countries were, pillaged by, um, pillaged and privatized to the gills, Lukashenko managed to kind of keep Belarus off that track, and they did not have the economic, savagery right then and there. And or the crash or feel the 1998 crash, and I think that probably earned him a lot of goodwill among local people for a while, but again, that it's been close to 30 years, uh and with the same leader, and certain things that maybe worked at one time in different conditions aren't now, and but again, I think there's certain like brainwashing. I regret not going when I had the chance because in the mid to late teens, um, people from a lot of different countries, including like U.S. citizens, could go fly into Minsk and stay, well, first for a week and then later for a month without a visa, and as long as you went through the airport. And even and then I wanted to, and then COVID came, and maybe you've heard that Lukashenko basically made a joke out of it, and people and it spread. COVID, that is, spread really fast and thoroughly through the country. I guess it, evened out eventually somehow, but I don't know if that was their version of herd immunity, but yeah, I was reluctant to go there when that was close, and then the political situation got bad, and then when their dissident activists trying to fly to Lithuania from was they had the forced landing, and then there were the sanctions on Belarus for that, and then it became very difficult. Yeah, like their relations with Western countries became extremely ever more strained, and now that there's no going back. So, but I do regret not visiting because I've heard people say that it's kind of a bit anachronistic. I mean, at the same time, I'm sure Minsk is a very modern city in its own right, but not entirely. So,
And I gotta really quick. I just got a huge raid. Welcome people from Real Dan Cody's stream. I'm talking to Rachel Atwood. She is someone who's lived in Kiev or Kiev. I'm trying to break myself of saying that.
I guess no, it's tough. It's like if you're a native Ukrainian speaker, it's like Kiev, but I can't say it properly.
So we're all saying
again,
it wrong.
Well, no, Kiev is okay. I'd say Kiev
Yeah.
is a good. Kiev is explicitly Russian. Kiev is if you can't say Kiev. Which I can't honestly. A lot of people in center and east of Ukraine don't. It doesn't necessarily slide off the tongue. So again,
Mm-hmm.
my housemates in Kiev are from the northwest of corner of Ukraine. Again, like I said, they never. Russian was never really I mean, it was the thing they learned in school as a second language in like Soviet. It was everywhere in the Soviet Union, but it was people still were Ukrainian speaking homes and so forth. Yeah, I'm saying is
Okay.
they can say things properly and that most people can't quite. So
Gotcha.
so yeah,
But
Kiev is sort
yep.
of like a happy medium. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
that's what I
So
would.
she's she lived there for 5 years. She had to leave obviously for obvious reasons. And she's staying in Prague currently. She's helping us kind of dispel some of the myths that have been going on the ground. Kind of helping us dispel some of the fog of war through her own experience and showing exactly how complicated this whole situation is. So welcome in everybody. Good to see you. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Marc Monkey. I am a leftist streamer from Flint, Michigan. And we do Word Exchange Wednesdays, where we do interviews. We do Music Mondays, where we play music and I react to music. And then the Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we cover news and politics with the old left-wing bent, and sometimes I do some goofy impressions. So welcome. So and I won't be able to pay attention to chat because I'm ADHD. I kind of have some problems multitasking that way. So we'll try to have a portion where we do some audience question and answers. But for the most part, I'm just gonna have my mods kind of monitor everything with you guys. And if you have something specifically to get my attention about, go ahead and highlight it, and I'll try to keep my eyes on that. All right, we can get back to it. Sorry, I have to do the whole thing since we're all live. It's a fun thing. And also, all this gets posted on my YouTube. I usually try to have it up by Saturday. Let me get my social. So follow me on all of those. Join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, all of that, and you can check out all this sort of fun content that I try to provide. All right, I think I got everything. I think that's everything. That's my spiel. All right. Okay. So
Cool.
back to what we were talking about with Belarus. What exactly is
Okay.
their game in this? You kind of mentioned that
Honestly,
they
yeah.
they kind of want to see if they can be their own thing by continuing to join Russia in this way,
I mean,
right?
I'm honestly not sure. I guess it's pretty like insulated. I mean, I'm remembering even studying decades ago, it was referred to as Europe's last dictatorship. And funny, sort of, again, that hasn't necessarily changed. Again, being on Russia's side, getting cheap and easy access to Russian resources like gas and so forth is one thought I have. And potentially again, the if there was any reason for military support, but I'm not sure. Again, they're just sort of. I just
It's difficult to say.
the media seems pretty airtight, I guess, and to an extent, not perfectly, but to enough of a degree. And I guess people have enough of their base material needs met by the status quo. Enough people aren't like desperate enough to think about otherwise. And I'm not advocating that doing any things that would change that. I'm just saying that's probably people don't rise up for the just for shits and giggles, or just if they are feeling, if they can get by. People will get by with in an authoritarian regime if their daily lives are livable, I guess is one way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. If it's kind of meeting some sort of standard, they kind of just go, well, yeah, it's a dictatorship, but sort of thing.
Yeah, and which I mean I could say was also
That's interesting to think about.
traditionally kind of the case in Kazakhstan, just another place that has create really massive natural resources, that enough that they can kind of they could have for a while. They had like their soft dictator who figured he would try to break you know the mold of actually leaving office before he died, compared to most other leaders in the region. And then
Okay.
again earlier this winter had some and again a protest largely starting about fuel prices, and then other stuff, feeling like his successor was just part of one clan that, yeah, again different political clans fighting each other.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. That you know, again, talking about the intent behind why Putin would want to invade Ukraine. Um, are there any other former Soviet states that are a threat to this same action, or is he just it's Ukraine? That's specifically what I want to go after.
I mean, I guess again there may be some certain like psychological things about, or historical his own notions of culture, and again like of like the main big
Sorry.
Eastern Slavic nations of Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. And again, granted, and Ukraine again, as given that part of it was not in the Russian Empire, and I mean it's mostly Eastern Orthodox, but even at the border with Poland, even has a Catholic minority. But I mean, I would say that maybe has that traction on a tries at least tries to on a cultural linguistic basis. Um, yeah, the other post-Soviet countries, again, mostly Turkic, or the Armenia and Georgia have their own. Well, I mean, and Moldova is like Romanian, and the Baltics are the Baltics, but yeah, I feel like it has a certain angle on it. Again, I can't like psychoanalyze too much, but it
Hmm.
does seem to have something very. personal somehow.
Yeah, so the focus is pretty much
But also,
on
again, a
Ukraine.
certain closeness that.
Yeah. It,
What? Sorry, go on.
so there's a certain focus on Ukraine specifically, and not so
Yeah.
much on other former Soviet states.
Well, I don't know. There is, or maybe a lot of other countries that. Well, I mean, yeah. No, actually, now that I think about it, yeah, Georgia is another one that has. Again, they've also had in 2008 their war. Well, there was also in the 90s, but like in Abkhazia and South Ossetia about territorial integrity. And you could argue that it need that a simple answer on that simple explanation is maybe um, Georgia started it, but Russia massively escalated. Like they brought an AK to a knife fight, basically. So
Hmm.
maybe Georgia whipped out a knife, and then Russia responded with a Kalashnikov.
So Georgia
So that
was
it's
was
again, it's
doing
not
some shelling
black
in
and white.
Ukraine too, or
What's
what?
that?
What exactly was Georgia doing to Ukraine?
No, no. I mean, it was about like well, particularly the region, like autonomous region of Ossetia is well, there's North Ossetia in Russia and South Ossetia in Georgia, and they are basically the same people that were um, again split down the middle in a time when they never thought that they would have that they were again during the Soviet Union. Freedom of movement within them and just other lack of borders wasn't really an issue. And then, well, again, one simplistic thing was Russia offering South Ossetian Russian passports, and Georgia saying like, "Hey, you can't do that. That's illegal." And like, oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it? And then they bring their military to that area to say like, "Okay, get out." And then Russia responds with, again, I don't remember the numbers, but they did. I can again. I'm saying is both countries. Yeah, again, you could say Georgia start like brought made Georgia to maybe thought what's the term fired the first shot, but then Russia escalated in their response
Hmm.
massively. And I guess with the cultural aspect in Abkhazia, because it's more direct, it's not. And that's I'm not. It's less. They're more independent. And they're actually seeking to be independent, and Russia has supported them in that and recognized uh, Abkhazia as an independent republic, kind of like what they have, well, what they've done here in, or in Ukraine. But yeah, just saying. Also, part of that has been an effort of kind of a pro-West um, uh, and westward looking desire from Georgia, particularly to again talking about possibly joining NATO, and now they're, I mean, also saying about asking about the EU, though mind you, they're not in Europe per se, so I don't know how that would work exactly, but yeah, they've also had been part of the dialogue about again about which direction they took, and also yeah, the three countries in the well, there are several, but the colored revolution of 2003 to 2005 was yeah Ukraine, Georgia, and Kyrgyzstan, and so
Hmm.
Kyrgyzstan has also had one foot in each door, but it's such a again another place I lived about going between pro-Russian and pro-Western. And again, it's such a little country that and quite poor that there's only so much that they want to do to they kind of try to maintain certain conditions along certain be on certain good terms with Russia because they are completely dependent on them for financially because just much of the population really most of Central Asia that like their young men all go to Russia or also some to Kazakhstan, some to China, but many go to Russia to work in many industries and send back money in remittances. So if you're when seeing like why a lot of them remained neutral in the latest UN vote is because they don't necessarily approve the actions, but they kind of and they don't want to become a total pariah like Belarus or Syria or these other places that are in, you know, cahoots with Russia, but at the same time economically don't necessarily want to alienate opportunities too much. I mean, it's the same thing of why they are kind of quiet about the persecution of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, is even though um, there are like ethnic Uyghurs in each of these countries, certainly in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and some in Uzbekistan. Um, and there are actually, yeah, people of their, certainly like Kazakh citizens who have been detained, you know, in camps in Xinjiang because they are so economically dependent on partnerships with China that they kind of grit their teeth. I'm not saying that, but yeah, I'm just saying is that what like strategic alliances is people put up with things because
They're
yeah,
just trying to not anger anybody because they
poor
don't have
nations
the
put up with
ability.
things. Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
saying that's something we'll see a lot of. Uh,
yeah.
um,
They're at the
sorry, so
unfortunate
yeah,
hands of their positions, so to speak.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and I mean I'd say other countries like certainly in Latin America who are maybe kind of soft on Russia because or Russia and or China because you know it's just as an alternative to the U.S., which is it's been awful to them. So they kind of I can't blame them for looking for an alternative, even if it's a deeply flawed one.
hmm. It's sort of one of
But
those
yeah, a lot
things
of it
where
strategic alliances. Sorry, do
there's
you want me to put
just
on the light in here or open a window or something? Or I
uh
just realized I'm like in the dark.
yeah I saw the light come on for just a second. The light
Oh
did
yeah, that was my sorry. Sorry, hold, let me try something.
there you
There,
go.
is this any better?
Oh yeah, much better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, it's in the other room.
um
Again, not trying to be like, not trying to be excessively casual. It's just I literally don't have a desk. So,
no, it's no problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah. So I had somewhere I was gonna go, and I just lost my train of thought. I kept meaning to write down a number of the questions I was going to do, but I kept putting it off, and then I got busy.
mhm.
Sun is setting over here. Yeah. What time
Yeah.
is it in Prague? Just out of
6
curiosity.
o'clock, 6:05.
PM.
So yeah, yep,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's only
Yeah.
6 hours difference from the States. I was used to 7, and before that I was used to 8, and I don't know. It's slowly working my way back, but I don't know. Yeah, extra slowly.
So you've kept a lot of contact with your friends in Kiev.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
how how's everybody feeling there from what you've heard?
I mean, a lot of people are scared. At the same time, and people have moved. It was at the very start. A lot of people were sheltering in the metros, which some of which go very very far underground, like some of the deepest in the world, actually. Um, a lot of people have left. Those who can, certainly, people have left the city. People who are they stay in the region. Though granted, the region is like the province. Um, has also been under fire, particularly several kind of bigger suburbs have been hit really bad. So that's kind of a fear also of the real disregard for the claim to the agreed on humanitarian corridors of leaving and of targeting civilians. Like the Kiev suburb of European people have been stuck in place and being bombed, basically like hiding under a bridge that was for days on end to avoid as they were shelling all around them. So
Mm.
things are pretty scary from people in different places. Even um, yeah, I guess again the east of the country, Kharkiv has had it really bad. Mariupol, which is the biggest city that is pretty close. It's in southeast of the country. It's technically in Donetsk province. It's on the but it's still in Ukrainian side. It has um, been under fire constantly, and efforts to, again, for them to establish a ceasefire for a humanitarian, uh, cor- I guess, corridor, or yeah, a ceasefire to allow for civilians to evacuate has been breached, like by the Russians multiple times. So people are kind
Yeah.
of stuck
So
waiting
what I
for
was gonna
that.
say.
Um,
They announced
yeah,
another one today, and I was just like, well, they haven't. The last
yeah, you
three
can't
he's
trust. It's like,
violated.
sorry, you can't really. It's not unreasonable to say, yeah, I don't trust you. It's like,
He hasn't been
it's
trustworthy
not.
at all.
It's without. Yeah, like not at all. And I mean, the city of Kherson, which again, this is also in the southeast, is the one where the actual capital has been under Russian control. But and the extent that I hear from people on the ground is it's real. People are having a really hard time, and Russian has been trying to film propaganda and to even like to bus in people from uh, nearby from Crimea and from Russian, like pro-Russian supporters, to to create propaganda in which the local people are greeting them as liberators and as someone that is doing right by them, and local people will not participate, and they will even like sabotage these efforts. So
Good.
it's yeah, the idea is that nobody wants them there necessarily, and
Yeah.
even people who, yeah, that it is an invasion. And
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest concern now, yeah, go ahead.
And for those who missed it earlier, we were talking about how some of the people who were more the very overinflated separatists are more so ones that they don't really care for either Russia nor Ukraine. They're kind of just like, just leave me alone. They're sort of like libertarians in America in a way, because they're just like, I don't want
Yeah,
either government bothering me.
well,
So
yeah, or
it's less.
again, it's yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, the idea, I guess, then it comes down to the idea of like the Minsk agreement, which in theory sounds nice, except the actual terms of it are quite vague, and it kind of puts into law basically the Russian invasion basically rewards them for their for their illegal war.
Ugh.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people there maybe necessarily they're fine keeping their Ukrainian citizenship, but but again, just want to kind of do their own thing.
Yeah. Keep 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 out of my hair, big government. I
Yeah,
want to do what I
yeah, they
want.
want their own
Yeah.
little local world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is that's probably that's something to me that is needs to get reported a lot more. That like they're not so much separatists as they are just kind of like they're just
Yeah, I mean,
very
again, there's
marginal
there's a small group of a small group of very vocal separatists who are paid handsomely by Russia to do so, and already had those connections to begin with, and yeah, again, it's
they're ANCAPs.
yeah, fair enough. I guess I never thought of it that way, but it could be that, yeah.
Like yeah, like sort of well, sovereign citizens is probably actually a better example, because they're
Yeah.
just like
I mean,
you
I don't know.
know
Does sovereign citizen imply like being armed to the teeth, though? I don't know. Is that like or is
yeah,
that
oh
just like a
yeah,
strictly U.S. concept?
as
Because I don't
sovereign
know if people necessarily are. Again, this current war is. I mean, am. I hate being like, yeah, okay, bring in the weapons, but at the same time, like people need to
they're being attacked.
be able to defend them. Yeah, there are people who are attacked need to be able to defend themselves. And
Hmm.
again, I hate it that it's come to this, but I can't pretend otherwise. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe some people will
I'm the same
disagree
way.
with me. That's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
also, I
very
think,
anti-gun, and yeah, when I see stuff like that, it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Just let them walk in and take your shit? Like, no, like,
and also, I mean, in a American weaponry context, the NRA is definitely has its ties with Russia, and I mean, obviously, she was just one little flip of a talking head, but that was what I always hated most about Maria Butina is that she was basically trying to import American NRA gun culture into Russia and a place that already that would be if they had the access to weapons in a Second Amendment style would be like yeah like mass suicide, mass homicide. I would be very. I'm sorry if that sounds like patronizing, but it was something that like for her some little fetish whatever it would be enough to like really harm people there, and I am
mhm,
not okay with that. So again, yeah, I worry about the long term potential. There's yeah there's is there could there be blowback of mass weaponry in Ukraine now? Yeah, but at the same time I'm also feeling like it's easy to speak about that when you're thousands and thousands of miles away, or even hundreds in my case, and it's not your reality here and now, and it's gross. I hate it, but at the same time it's like, what are you going to do, not believe your like don't believe your lying eyes? I don't know. It's
mhm, mhm. That's true. What do you what is your view on the continued sanctions and all the businesses pulling out of Russia?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, not gonna lie, there's a little bit of like schadenfreude and like uh
True,
at the
true.
same time people, I mean, when and Russian oligarchs whining about their luxury goods not being made available, that's extremely satisfying. um I mean, though, like most Russians are damn resourceful and can make do with little, and I'm not trying to downplay that. I'm just saying is that people can make do with like with old clothes and the groceries that they have. If they I mean, I do worry, yeah, about if fuel becomes inaccessible and food becomes inaccessible. Yeah, that makes me worried. And I have friends there who've suddenly lost their income, and I do worry about that. I don't know. I'm just really conflicted enough to like to say that I don't have an answer, and I'm glad I am not a policymaker or someone that is in a position to vote on this, because I don't know how I would what I would do.
Hmm.
I'm yeah, I'm very torn
Yeah,
up. I mean, again, I can say the cultural anti-Russian backlash is stupid. I'm old enough to remember freedom fries. It's like, you know,
same here.
and like boycotting of Russian art when that is basically the you know it all has produced like tons of transgressive sub what's the word it'll come to me in a second. Yeah, basically very anti-authoritarian and um, messages that should certainly be embraced and amplified.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, on the cultural level, that's just quite stupid, really. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It hasn't had the widespread sort of thing like it did with the whole freedom fries and all that shit because of
yeah, with
France.
Iraq. I mean, I don't know how much of. Well, I guess it
I've
depends on
really only
certain
seen that
groups.
one video of that the person pouring out the vodka, and that's like it. And
Oh, okay.
vodka isn't even made. The vodka's made in like Lithuania, I think, and it's not even
Yeah, I don't
Russian.
know. It depends. There's different things. Yeah, is it? Yeah. One thing I can say is like stereotypes. Russians don't drink that much vodka. They drink some, but they also drink a lot of beer and they drink a lot of wine. Like Black Sea region, and well, now certainly Crimea, whose ever that is great wine country. So, um, and also there's again there. I mean, I was just in Poland. Now I'm in Czech Republic, so getting in on the beer scene more. But yeah, I can say, yeah, the people being hooked on like hard liquor, particularly vodka, is definitely overblown. But I guess as for cranky people making videos of destroying things for a laugh, there was one about this old guy, this cranky Russian guy destroying his iPad because Apple was not processing things in Russia at the moment. So they're
Dude, you already
right
bought it.
wing. Yeah, right wing nut jobs. They're just like us, or depending on where you are. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's again cultural signifiers. I suppose it's a fun thing to talk about because it doesn't necessarily have the same life or yeah, it's easier to think to talk to discuss that than things like than sanctions that could hurt regular people. And I mean, I don't know a whole lot about how sanctions or lack thereof um, around the oil industry and people connected to that and how effective that would be. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing different things. I'm seeing something Ilhan Omar wrote, and I have to look into about it. But I'm noticing a lot of people are uh, it having a lot of strong opinions on her take, which again, I haven't looked at it closely enough, but I will, and you know,
Yeah.
I'll
Is
I'll
that
if I
the
come up with an
is that the
mhm.
one
Yeah, go on, sorry.
I'm trying oh god, I know it. I think I read it last night. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
Mhm.
Um I'll do it this way. Um, just so we kind of know what specifically we're talking about here.
There's
Where is
something
it?
relating to oil sanctions.
Yeah. I think it might be this one. Our response to Putin's immoral war shouldn't be to strengthen our relationship with the Saudis, who are currently causing the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet in
No,
Yemen.
it definitely wasn't that either.
No, it wasn't that
Wait, it
one?
was about a vote. No, it was about a vote that she had about sanctions. It's okay if we don't see it now.
Okay.
Again, it was just something that popped up to me that I saw people having.
Strong reactions to. Hmm.
No, it's okay. You can look at it later.
Okay.
Again, I don't even have my thoughts uh in place yet. I just again I feel like there think that there's a lot that might not be so black and white, but
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
it's interesting. I can say that there are people, certainly people around me here, which do not feel so conflicted, who feel okay being anti-Russian, and in but again to an extent that I don't. Again, I'm just sort of
I mean, most of
again I
Americans
can
are
say
still
I'm not in
convinced
a.
that it's a socialist country, and that's what they're fighting against is
Oh
socialism.
God. I
So
mean, do many people really think that, or is that just something that's overblown on social media? Again, I haven't
there's
been to
been
the
some
States in over
polling.
2 years. So,
People
again,
people so uninformed in
so
this
hard to
country.
actually, yeah, God, that's depressing.
Yeah, tell me
Very
about it.
good. I mean,
Uh,
also that like some of the tankies who genuinely think that as reason to support the Kremlin, the United Russia regime. That
yeah.
I mean,
Meanwhile,
such jokes.
they're actually supporting nationalism and authoritarian capitalism more than anything. Like
Yeah,
it's just it's so
sure.
silly
I
and
mean, at
weird.
least some of them I hope get paid well enough for it. I mean, with RT being down, got some feathers ruffled, which I mean, there've been some decent enough material on RT in America and Sputnik radio in the past, so I'm not gonna paint with too broad a brush, but a lot
Hmm.
of it was also kind of. And again, I would say. like any national media, like you've got the BBC, what is it, CBC, France 24,
Al
and a
Jazeera.
lot of these other ones. Al Jazeera, yeah, it's Qatari. That I would say, like, kind of what I like to call like part of a small part of a well balanced media diet is that to see, like, okay, to get this angle, this group, this country's potential, like the perspective that, well, more often than not, someone in power would sign off on in a given country or region or something. It's useful to know, but I mean, at the problem is when people rely on one or another source exclusively, then it becomes very, very clear,
Oh
very
yeah, yeah,
quickly
yeah.
where they're getting their talking points.
Yeah, sourcing out media is so difficult, especially for the general American population, because they don't really have the time to consume a lot of media. You know, we're all overworked and underpaid. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
like the things that I always say is like something with RT. Don't trust anything when they talk about anything regarding Russia or their region. Al Jazeera. If they report on things regarding Qatari. Uh, uh,
Sure.
you know, it's you got to take it all with like a grain of salt. BBC, don't trust
Yeah, of course.
anything reporting on trans issues, amongst other
Profiling.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise,
I mean, I could
Al
say,
Jazeera is
yeah,
pretty consistent.
yeah. I could say for this particular piece of news now and conflict in general, I have been pretty satisfied with what I've seen from France 24. If people are interested, I mean,
Oh, interesting.
again, also for some, whether it's really true or if it's again just a media op and or strategic alliance question, but it seems like France has been the voice of reason about this largely. I mean, in the past, Angela Merkel was like the go-between person, but also sort of the one that was, um, yeah, as the mediator. But since she stepped down, and I guess Scholz is brand new and so forth, that Macron seems to, well, again, France and Germany were the mediating countries in this, and now, yeah, like maybe if
I
it's just an image of, but yeah, Macron seems to be the mediating force, and maybe somehow by that reflection, uh, French public broadcasting seems to have a fairly even keel. I'm sure there are other issues from which they are wildly unreliable, but it's just
mhm.
one thing I've seen so far in this one is, yeah, among foreign public media.
Yeah, one of my
In
mods
ways that
is French
the
too, so
BBC has been less consistent. What's that?
he one of my mods is in France. He's French, and he could probably speak to
Uh-huh.
that too. Kind of let me know. I mean, he kind of.
Yeah, that would actually be useful. Again, it's hard to see how much of it is image play because, I
Hmm.
mean, like Zelensky, well, except I mean, kind of young and you know, kind of the young, pretty face too that can't really deny.
Hmm. The one comment that he's given is grumble grumble Macron can suck a dick, grumble grumble. Thanks, Lord.
Okay, all right, all right. Again, I'm imagine he's all like, again, maybe that it's not substance, it's like visuals and so forth. But yeah,
Hmm.
that it's an image, not a substance issue. But
Yeah, it's really difficult too. Like that's why I know a lot of people really want to jump on the idea of getting their story out first, getting their take out first. That sort of now news sort of push,
sure.
but they have to recognize that there are a lot of factors in play here that make information, proper information, difficult to get out. There's the fog of war. There's the
Mhm.
Russian misinformation campaigns. Their Facebook's things that they create. There's RT, and
Mhm.
there's so many things working against getting the proper information out. On top of it being a situation that's far more complicated than just going uh, Ukraine good, Russia bad. Um, and it's, I really just, I really worry about how clinging to that information because you saw it first can affect the overall public viewing of this whole situation. Because I don't want people to see siding with Ukraine and the Ukrainian people as pro-imperialist, because it's really not. Siding with Russia is
Mm-hmm.
more pro-imperialist, but it's so much more complicated than people are giving it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah,
what
I
do you
mean,
think?
also, again, it's kind of, I keep saying, like, yeah, strategic alliances and also I think what some one critique again of like Western leftists, certainly at least those with uh any sway, I would say my issue is kind of the inclination to um fall to side with like with people that are nominally socialist or leftist in the global south, and the people that they support, and thinking that that is how you're being a good, I don't know, that you're doing that well, um whereas they're acting in their own material self-interest, like I'm saying, like for example Bolivia, Morales has been kind of lukewarm and not, well, obviously he's not the president anymore, but he still has a major influence. Oh God, I'm forgetting the Bolivian president's name, but they're, they
Um,
work closely together still. And
yeah,
he's been
yeah,
kind of soft and lukewarm on Russia because, well, the U.S. basically helped with their coup 3 years ago, and Russia and
they
China,
did.
well, if Russia is an alternative, it would make sense for them to have that as that backdoor available. And so that's from their perspective. But then if someone in the West, I don't know, say Jeremy Corbyn will look at that and say, like, okay, he said Morales is saying this, so therefore it makes sense for me to stand with Morales, rather than be like, okay, this is they are talking about what works for them and from their perspective, where, I mean, I would still say Morales was inarticulate and not good with context with his statements. But again, it's they're operating from the position they are in as a poor country that is kind of balancing what they can get from whom to be less fucked over.
They
And
don't
then
want to
someone,
seem siding with the U.S.
yeah,
But
yeah, or again, even like Jeremy Corbyn has done that a bit. And again, it's something I think he's had some reflections on, to be like, okay, maybe it's not that simple, but I feel like that's sort of his instinct, and he's kind of stepped in it a little bit. And I mean, a lot of people in a lot of pro-Ukrainian, well, Westerners, certainly like Brits and so forth, have been, a lot of people have said like, oh, he's like a, you know, always like pro-Russian and so forth. And I don't really believe that. And also, yeah, he was like calling out Putin's wars in Chechnya in the 90s, and that a lot of people don't, when most people didn't really think of it as, they thought of it like an internal Russian fight, an internal
mm,
Russian conflict, and oh, those guys, there must be the terrorist warlords anyway, so maybe they're not the good guys or something. But
yeah,
at the same time, I would say he's kind of gotten caught in the weeds a bit about, yeah, about who is talking, yeah, again, about who to follow in what area. But again, I don't,
um,
he's not like impervious to reflection and change, so I think i'm I'm not going coming down on him in a lot the way a lot of Ukrainian supporters are. But at the same time, yeah, sometimes sometimes he's not quite there.
yeah,
Sorry, that was a
yeah.
tangent.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I think the big thing that made the West kind of turn against uh, Chechnya was because they're majority Muslim, correct?
Yeah, not well,
I'm
vast
just making sure I
majority,
remember.
and of a very I don't know, I wouldn't even say no, they weren't necessarily fundamentalist always. A lot of them were like Sufi and do and kind of very removed. Certain Chechnya and other North Caucasus nations that really did their own thing, but and then it became an idea of like Russia on one side and then getting, Gulf support with, with Wahhabism for kind of for working towards a caliphate on the other, and maybe a lot of Westerners are just like, oh, I don't want to go near that even, and maybe or thinking like, okay, maybe even if they are massacring civilians, maybe again a certain on some levels they might have been like, okay, maybe Russia's the lesser evil as the more relatable image of a I don't know,
The
white
Boston Marathon
Christian.
bombing definitely didn't help in that too.
Yeah. Oh, that was much. Yeah, more recently. Yeah.
Wasn't
I'm
that kind of
remembering.
during that period too, though?
No, that
I
was
think it was.
2013.
Uh,
No, I was talking about
yeah.
the 90s. No, 2013. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
90s.
I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
it
yeah.
well. Oh, I'm remembering. Hell, uh, I hadn't. No, I had never been to the Czech Republic till 2019, but I remember in 2013 the embassy in DC was saying like the Czech embassy was like, we are not Chechnya, stop protesting us, and like love America. But yeah, Chechnya also like
Time is a
again the
flat
story of
circle.
those two guys, kids really of again of nationality and of an identity in so many ways that again they were kicked out of their mosque in Boston for being um
Too
like for
extreme.
voicing a lot of like very extremist rhetoric. I don't know if it never got to the authorities or what, or maybe they didn't want, but yeah, it's like there had been red flags about those guys for a while
Yeah,
as individuals.
yeah. That's
And
true. That
yeah, that
situation was
also
definitely
reminded
complicated.
bothered again. Yeah, that hit me bad as well because I'm from Massachusetts, and Boston Marathon is like the thing that it's always celebrated. It's evacuation day. It's what do you call it? Patriots Day, or yeah, that's like Marathon Monday. It's for it's like yeah, no, it's Super Bowl Sunday for the rest of us, particularly for the rest of the world where where the winners are off very often from Africa. So,
Hmm.
and who are also like the biggest superstars of their home of Kenya and Ethiopia and Uganda,
One of
Eritrea,
those things
etc. So, but yeah,
where like the whole community kind of comes together and you're like all kind of one sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
I
mean,
know
there's
what
still
that's
some
like. Yeah.
chauvinism. There's certainly like Boston racism, chauvinism, and all of that. Some of the stuff
Hmm.
that it's like, they're son of a bitches, but they're my son of a bitches. All right, come here. Come here, Pats
Yeah,
fans. I
yeah,
hate you, but you're mine. Come here, Sox fans. Just
yeah.
sit down and shut up, and I'll get you some chowder. But
That is Boston and the old massholes. There's a
yep,
lot of that
yep,
kind of
I own it. I mean,
weirdness.
again, I grew up, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
so that was kind of a kind of a double-edged sword as well. So for me, on
Mhm.
also because yeah, the kids had been in Central like they spent their young years in Central Asia, and particularly in places that I'd been later on, and I knew a lot of well, actually, I knew many more Tatars in Central Asia, but also certainly some North Caucasus people from the North Caucasus that had their parents and grandparents had been, you know, deported out there. That again, part of the stories of resentment and so forth, and then more positive, more recently, again, just as the figure of Habib as the, you know, the fighting Dagestani or Avar, kind of as the image of that culture.
Sorry, I'm just messing with something in the background.
Sure, sure, no problem.
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? You gonna work for me? Okay, there we go. All right. So, getting back to Ukraine as much as we can. Let's see here.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah, sorry, I'm
no,
meandering all over the place.
it's fine. Like I said, I'm ADHD, so like getting on off on these tangents is kind of a thing that happens. But it's like, shit, you're doing an interview, Mark. You got to keep on topic. um, let's let's see here. So, how how have how have things been regarding the resources on the ground within like the less populated areas, or even in the higher populated areas?
I mean, there's, people doing, again, the organization I help out with, have people on the ground delivering resources. And I mean, there are times like they
Do you
have
mind
to,
sharing
there are times when
what organization you work with?
it's really little thing called Anomaly. I can even post, actually, we were getting ready to final, like, the proper website was going up and was in different phases and getting close to being done until this recent event kind of paused everything. So most of the information is on a Facebook site still. Not, again, I don't know. The timing was so
You were in the
unlucky
process
in that
of
regard.
it setting up, and
Like properly launching it. I don't know why it took this long, but
uh,
people are doing a million things at once. So,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
also it's entirely volunteer. No, like nobody gets a cent. Everybody is doing a full-time job on top of it. So,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
my full-time job, and which I who knows if it, yeah, I basically am out of touch with, but I think they'll live.
Do
But
I
probably my office might not be intact right now because that was one of the first regions in the city to get blown up, basically.
is there a link you want me to share for that with everybody,
Um,
or
sure. Hold on one second.
okay?
Do I have it on here?
Yeah, because any promotion of something like
I
that
there.
working on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I can say, like, I'm not sure if I was like gonna prepare to do a plug, but I can say, for terms of donations, again, nobody gets a salary. It all goes directly to, again, a lot of it materially. Do you want me to post it on somewhere,
Um, if you want
or
to send it to me, I can
in
put
this?
it in my
Okay,
chat.
in the message. Okay. Again,
Yeah,
it's a Facebook page, so there are other things. Again, yes, they do. I'm not going to say it's all that they are completely unattached to military attaches. It has worked primarily in the military sphere with veteran, until quite recently, veteran rehabilitation, and with combat medical training. It's again, the host has, or the host, the director's American guy who worked as a field medic in Iraq in the late 2000s. So that's really been their thing about train. Again, also we have met tons of other different projects domestically in Ukraine. I was primarily helping in teaching English, but also working with different, like, connecting with LGBT rights groups, animal shelters and other, like, local eco projects. They've got to, if there's something that can be done in the community to make things better, they try to get involved. But I can say the military wing of it is, yeah, largely about combat medic training and material use. So
less
that is
on
something that probably.
less as a
What's that?
like a less as a offensive group, and more trying
Well,
to
yeah,
help
I mean
people on the
that's,
ground.
again, 'cause, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure they coordinate with people, but yeah, it's about like CPR and other like field medic uh, efforts and so forth.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
yeah, if any money would, and then yeah, so we are working with some of that.
Okay, okay. Well,
But
sounds like
yeah, so
a
they help with that, and others do. I mean, I can say in terms of the material things that people need. Obviously the border crossings are a real challenge. For me, it was only 8 hours, which I mean, only 8 hours. It was very unpleasant. But where I was, they had volunteers out carrying, like, offering tea and coffee and snacks, and they had some, like, a medical tent, and they had a tent with a heater in it for people to go in, and a changing station for babies. And yeah, they were but I've heard that other places were not so organized, or they were just overrun with people very coming in very, very fast.
Mhm.
And yeah, the and prejudice broke out, and that's a nice way to put it. Again, where I was, fortunately, none of the authorities were onto any of that. It was mostly just rude people in line. But I've heard from other people that were not so fortunate.
Yeah,
And
so
I mean, it's a lot of naked racism.
a lot of those reports got here,
Yeah,
and
it's a lot of, yeah, there's
that's why
naked
there's so much.
racism for sure.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot of concentration on the Nazis. Not to mention, Putin pushing that he's denazifying Ukraine, and it's like,
Yeah, again, Putin's
again, yeah,
line stupid, but yeah, is that in times of total crisis, the worst in people come out. Which I'm not defending them. I'm just saying
yeah,
is that certain things that were under the surface and have bubbled over. I'm actually, again, at this rate, it's still. I don't even know if I can say it because I have not I've not made anything of it yet. But I am looking for organizations, or I found organizations, like projects in some ways, that can connect Ukrainian refugees to other people of war torn areas. I mean, based on where I went to grad school, I got to know a lot of people from Afghanistan, so that's a place I'm starting. But also, again, you could, yeah, as you said, Syria, Iraq, other that I think that there could be a real strong opportunity for solidarity. And you know I'm very glad that people are opening their doors and their wallets and everything to Ukraine and Ukrainians in need now. And I think that that could be leveraged to be like, you know, if you're gonna take me, you're gonna help me, I help my friend. Help these people are not, particularly if it's struggling families and so forth, about saying, like, why not, if, yeah, like I said, if you can help me, you can help them. And it's kind of, and I would think that the chance of them saying, of getting no, of getting rejected, both getting rejected, and the image that shows, I feel like that's a higher, I'd say the opportunity to help more people in this time of generosity, if it's if it's arranged, if it's done right. I see this could be a big opportunity that
hmm
it's not, I don't know how well it's used yet, but I see it could be. And I don't know if I'm really the person to do it, but it is something that I hope I can work on in some context, because
if nothing
I
else,
think it could.
if nothing else, you're putting the idea out there. That's important
Yeah,
too. I
again, so
mean,
maybe, and again, I'm,
there's
yeah, looking
just,
for to make those connections. Sure.
yeah, we need to. I think there's definitely a need to kind of not center. God, it's so weird to make
Hmm.
this statement, and got to make it carefully, to not center
Hmm.
really the Nazi issue, because they are generally marginalized. Yes, they are in the armed forces, but they're not the general
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I
populace.
would say, yeah. Are a lot of people are there a lot of people in the general populace who are kind of racist? Yeah, probably. Does that, I don't know what that, how that, and can their
But they still need
minds
help.
be changed? Yeah, can their minds be changed? Absolutely. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'd
and
say that.
they still need help. They're being
Yeah,
bombed
yeah,
just
that's
like
another
anybody.
thing about it. Yeah, yeah, to say, like, your grandmother's kind of racist, so fuck you all. I mean, um, yeah, that's not going to help anybody. So I feel like maybe there are again, I hate to be like, oh, is this a Russian influencer? Is the Russian influencer in the room with you now? But I do think that that focus is intentional from as a way of obfuscating and distracting. And I'd say we could also just as easily turn it on its head
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
there is the will, and I don't see why there can't be.
All right.
So, so that's
Well,
something I'm. It could be a call to action from others who actually do have a somewhere to begin with this. So,
okay. All right. Well, we I've got to end pretty soon here. I very much appreciate you coming on. Very
really,
informative and very enlightening.
and thanks
Um,
to Andrew for mentioning it. Because
yeah,
uh,
I'm gonna try. I originally asked him because I was like, oh, he's a historian. He knows a lot of this stuff. It'd be perfect to bring on. And he was like, yeah, I actually don't know
mhm.
all that much about it. I'm like, oh.
Well, I
He's
mean,
like, but
he
here's someone who
probably
does.
does know like historical background. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. There are definitely people that know a lot more than me that I could like plug and so forth too. So,
Let me
uh,
just do this so that I can get your information out there for the peeps to follow.
okay.
I put her name in the title, but I'll put her Twitter. That's the
Yeah,
only
it's just
real.
Rick Atwood. Yeah, and I
That's the main
try to be
social
good
media
with
you
following.
use, right?
What's that?
That's the main social media that you
What's that?
use right now.
Yeah, I mean, I use Facebook because I have to. And it, um, what do you call it? Twitter, Instagram, same thing. If I'm if you actually like have something you want to say to me, even if it's fuck off, whatever, that's fine. And but I'm not responding. You could like what is it? What the kids say? The DMs are open or something?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I'm
Your
just like
DMs are
I'm
open.
yeah, I'm game for anything. So, but
Right on.
yeah, this has been like super cool. So again, I'm nobody's authority on any of this. Just
Of
sort of
course, yeah. That is something to point out that you're a person who knows people on the ground. You're a person that understands the culture a lot better than any general American's going to because you've lived there for 5 years. 5 years is not an insignificant amount of time. You know it's definitely enough
and I
time
was again
to
in
get how
Russia
things
for a
go.
while before that too. So I that's kind of part of my issue is to feel like of feeling like both places I've called home being
Hmm.
torn up this way. It's
And keep calling into Majority Report.
oh
I
okay
know they
yeah
look forward to
I
your calls, and I do too, because hearing how things are on the ground is it's so important because of all the misinformation out there
yeah
and
for
the
sure
jumping of the guns as it is.
sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and
Oh,
maybe
sure.
we'll
Thank
have you
you.
on again sometime. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. All right. See you later.
And maybe I'll have a desk then.
Yeah. No worries. This
All
was
right.
very intimate.
Okay. God, I hope it's not going to be clipped or something.
No, no.
Okay.
There was I
No,
made
no, you're good. You're good.
I kept an eye out for anything like that. No worries. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I realized looking at the when it was dark, I didn't tell, but now I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, this is a like sitting in bed. All right. But again, not by choice.
All right. Well, we'll see you later.
All right. Cool. All
Bye.
right. Take care.
Bye.
Sure. Bye.
Oh, yeah. All right. That was super informative. Oh my god. Uh I really do think that more people need to be talking to people like Rachel to kind of get a better idea of what is going on. Because people are really jumping to a lot of conclusions. The really informative part to me was asking about a lot of the separatists, finding out that they're they're not they're definitely more like sovereign citizens in a lot of way, where they're just like, I just don't want to be bothered by government and sort of thing. Like, I'm not pro-Russian, I'm not pro-Ukraine, I just am like, whatever, fuck both of them. And it's like, you don't hear that because they're not even technically separatists in a way. They're separatists in that they don't want to really be a part of Ukraine either. Another informative thing is to just recognize that there's the concentration on Nazis is like, yes, and they're also rightfully defending their country. Them being that is kind of secondary, so long as they're not using their position to harm marginalized people within the country. It's sort of like, it feels so weird to just be like, let it go, you know? But it's kind of what it is. It's sort of like, the comparison I was making it to in my head was sort of like, when I would work as a CNA, or when my wife would work as a CNA, or when she would work in nursing homes dealing with racist patients. You don't want to have to help these people, but you have to. Like, they're disgusting human beings, but they still need help. And the reason they're there, the reason they need help, has nothing to do with their personal feelings towards marginalized people. So it becomes this really difficult spot to be in, where yes, you're helping people that aren't the most people that aren't great, obviously, and people who could, if they were in power, do some horrible things, but you side with them having a right to their place on their land and their protection, rather than worrying about their personal feelings. You can kind of put that on the back burner and be like, okay, yeah, so you're Nazi, but you're not acting as a Nazi. We'll worry about that later. Because right now, the problems we have to worry about is another nationalist country invading and trying to take over this region for God knows why. So, as much concentration as there is on Ukrainian Nazis, there needs to also be a concentration on Putin and his nationalistic tendencies, and the nationalistic tendencies within Russia itself. So it's a weird way to think about it. I still stand by, punch Nazis, all that. But right now it's like, it's sort of like there's just bigger fish to fry in this situation. They're not in any position to where they're going to take over the country. They're not in any position where they're acting on those impulses. And so long as that stays the case, concentrating on them just seems like kind of pointless. And we have much more important things to worry about. Nazis versus Nazis will take the winner, or something like that. I don't even think that, because they're not even a large percentage of Ukraine. They're where they're most abundant is within the National Guard. And that, that obviously is bad, but their concentration right now is not on, going after the Jews. You know what I mean? Their concentration right now is, we're being invaded by Russia, and we have to act as the National Guard. And there are nationalists, and they're acting in that national interest too. It's so much more complicated than people on the internet are making it, and taking the time to go over these things a lot more carefully can really spare us some, as I say, the eating of shit later down the line. The sort of, yeah, I clung to this idea and now I have to walk it all back, and, so I say eating shit. Because you don't want to, and it's gross and it's awful, but you have to. You made your take. It was completely wrong. Fog of war settles, and you find out that you fucked up. Own up being wrong, but on top of that, own up just sometimes being like, I don't know enough about this situation to have a take in the first place. And that I think is a difficulty that a lot of people have, especially with this situation.
Hey, it's Mark and Eli. I hope you're doing well. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? My child may stop picking on me. Uh,